an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece episodes 598, 599, and 600. We're at 600, kiddos. Shit's bonkers. A samurai who can cut fire, Foxfire Kinemon. Shocking, the true identity of the mystery man, Vergo. And save the children, the master's evil hands close in. In these episodes, the kids are about to be lured into imprisonment again because they want candy. Frankly, relatable. We have got a new weirdo to fucking deal with on top of everything. Don't love this. And also finding out what it was that Caesar was able to do. He just takes people's oxygen away. That is not fair. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Bernadette for commissioning this episode. Bernadette, if you're out there, appreciate you. Y'all, my God, I can't believe we're here. And the thing is, I can't even say that I've watched 600 episodes because there's been a bunch of fillers. So I don't know exactly how many, we'd have to do a calculation on how many filler episodes there were that you guys didn't have me watch. And then I would have to try and remember which ones I watched on my own time. I'm not going to do all of that. So I'm just going to say at around 625 that I have watched 600 episodes. I think that's 630, 625 around there is fair. This arc is continuing to be pretty compelling. There are so many little things about Caesar that I really enjoy. And I know that this is going to seem sort of weird for me to say, but I'm going to say it. There's a point in this where he realizes, oh, okay, these Straw Hats that I thought were dead are still alive, which means that the Yeti brothers, the Cool brothers, must have fucked up. And I was expecting him to follow up that observation with well, they better watch their backs because I'm going to punish them for this. Instead, this dude says, I understand that. Because the combination of them plus Trafalgar Law was probably too much for them to handle. Now, guys, I just really want to, I said this before, all right, already. But this moment was another instance of it. Caesar Clown is just weirdly reasonable in certain ways that I keep being surprised by. I'm so used to the kinds of villains that just snap at people and beat the shit out of them instantly for any infraction I'm not trying to say that Caesar Clown is a good guy. And I'm not trying to say that the fact that he's going, oh, well, I guess they just couldn't handle these dudes makes him a good person or anything. But it's just that he is more interesting than a lot of the villains that we have run across, and especially coming off of the Horty arc. He has, Horty was so kind of by the numbers. It felt like Horty was a very phoned in villain, if that makes sense. That coming across Caesar Clown, a guy who is a mad scientist performing horrible experiments, that's not new. We've seen those kinds of villains before. But the little details like that of how he is able to keep in mind the big picture about certain things and not just throw a fucking tantrum. It makes it more interesting. I just think it does. Um, Seraphim says, "Hey, 600, and it's actually over halfway through for now." Nice. I don't think I had done a check-in with you guys about what episode we were like One Piece is up to in a while. So if you know Seraphim, let me know. Seraphim says he's an amoral asshole, but he's not a total idiot. Also, let's face it, going all "you failed me" and trying to off his mooks just for messing up is like a lot of pointless work. That's true. I could see him being like, you failed me, and now I'll use some experimental ray gun on you just to see what happens or whatever. Um, but anyway, okay, so you guys, this Vergo character, uh, I think that the way that it's pronounced in the show is like Vergo. So I'm going to say Vergo because otherwise it just sounds like the astrological sign. And that is Beyonce's sign for anybody who is interested. And I just don't really like that it sounds like this. So I feel like going Vergo, I like it. Vergo is uh he is an odd one. I can't really decide how I feel about this dude as a character so far. One of the like main things for me that's sort of a hang up as of right now, the voice actor. He has a very sonorous voice and it's got real richness to it. And I love that. That makes it almost like I would like for you to read me a story to fall asleep to, kind of thing, you know? Um, However, he he sort of like delivers lines weirdly. And, you know, I'm keeping in mind that this is something that's specific to the dub. I don't know what all y'all have, you know, what you've got in the sub version. So it may not be an issue, or it may be like an actual character choice. I don't think it is, but it might be. But, his overall vibe is so strange. And when he shows up and finally steps out into the light, there is what looks like a whole steak stuck to his face. And my friends, when I tell you that I thought this was just a part of his look, I'm not being cute. I just thought, well, why not? Oda does a lot of weird shit, and this does feel for me like it's particularly weird. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, whatever. I kind of thought it was meant to be like a joke about how some sideburns are called mutton chops, was what I thought we were doing. So then later on, when he's having the conversation with Monet and she's like, "Did you have steak for breakfast? Because there's some on your face." I was like, I don't know if that's less weird. To be honest, making this be just the look that he has might be less strange than to suggest that this man is walking around for several hours with a whole fucking steak stuck to his face that he didn't see or feel. That's just, you know, my opinion. But it was a real weird bit, you guys, because I really did have such a reaction to his look, and I thought it was going to be something that I would have to sort of address on the show in a, well, I guess you just never know what Oda's going to do kind of way. And then it still was that, but in a totally different direction than what I was expecting. So yeah, he's here and he's like, he says, "You think the boss doesn't know what's going on? I had hoped you were smarter than that." To be honest with you, we don't trust this Caesar character either. The guy is shady. That's why the boss sent an undercover agent to the island. the lovely Monet here. Rumor has it you're a warlord now. That's one hell of a promotion. So, is the boss that he keeps referring to the Joker? Well, I keep saying the Joker. They don't ever call him the Joker, they just call him Joker. And eventually we find out that that's Doflamingo. Um, which, I'll be honest, I was sort of expecting from the way this reveal was like, the way they led up to it, I was expecting that maybe Doflamingo was going, or not Doflamingo, that Joker was going to turn out to be somebody a little bit closer to us that we had gotten to know slightly better. But it being Doflamingo felt like a tiny bit of a letdown to me. I'm curious how any of you feel about it, because I just don't really care about him right, like, as of yet. I don't feel like I've gotten to know him particularly well. He's always out here just like being kind of a what's the word I want? He's just provoking people, is really his overall vibe. Um and I I I don't know how better to do this. Like, when I say how better, I mean, I don't know what character I could point to as being like, well, I was thinking maybe somebody like this. It's just that Doflamingo has been kind of nothing. So I loved the fact that when it's like announced that's who it is, Luffy's reaction is literally, who's that? And finally he like, oh, that guy, once they remind him. But it was gratifying to me. It felt like they were lampshading it a little bit, that they were like, yeah, I know. It's not that intriguing as of yet. It will be, I promise, but we understand that probably for now it's sort of whatever, because it is a little bit. And I think Doflamingo is like, I think I've kind of enjoyed him when he's been on screen. It's not like I don't like him as a character, but I don't have any particular attachment to him, and his being like, somebody who's doing his own thing in the underworld doesn't really come as any sort of shock, because he does not strike me as a person who gives a shit about rules at all. So, uh, let's see. He says, I hitched a ride on a tanker leaving port, and now it seems it was the right move. And Law says, why target me? I didn't do a thing to you. And Law is like, all right, well, I guess I better take care of you now then. And he tries to go for his sword. I was genuinely shocked by this. This man has you laying flat on the floor as if it's nothing. And you grab this weapon like you're going to be able to do anything to him. I didn't even know yet about the fact that this man is in, like, he has Law's heart in his custody. But not even knowing that, it just felt like you don't want to fuck with this guy, Law, based on just the interaction so far. And when he tries, I was truly startled. Um, let's see. I'm trying to, Seraphim says, you are pretty much in the minority on that one. People were extremely hyped to finally be getting some actual focus on him finally. Really? Okay. I don't know, like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, he hasn't made that much of an impression on me. He has a fun outfit, and he's got a rude tude, and that's pretty much it for me. But you know what, like, guys, occasionally this will happen with fandoms where they get very fixated on a particular character that they are all extremely interested in for reasons that I don't understand. And it's like, sometimes it feels almost like it's more of a joke. Like, I don't know how many of y'all were there when the Stranger Things first season dropped, but the girl, I think her name is Kathy's like friend, who is sort of a frumpy type named maybe Brenda. People were just very into Brenda as a character, And there were tons of memes about her and stuff. And it was just sort of like, okay, I guess. And then I will go on record as saying this. It's always been weird to me how much the Star Wars fandom were into the Mandalorian. Like Boba Fett, he's nothing in the first movies. Like, really, there's very little to him. And he just had this following that motivated them eventually to make a whole TV show. And like, once you have the show and you're learning more about him, he's a very fun, interesting character. But initially, I had heard so much about Boba Fett that when I finally got around to watching the original trilogy, I was just like, that that's what has everybody so entranced? Like, why? So I'll just put it down to that. What can you do? So this is when not only does he squeeze Law's heart, but he does something that sort of like turns his arm and this like staff that he's holding into what looks to be almost like black stone, and just whaps Law on the side of the head and tells him to have some fucking respect. It's Mr. Vergo to you. I keep saying Vergo. Um, so this dude is just, I don't know, he's coming in here and really trying to say he owns the place, and I'm curious how right it's going to turn out he is about that. And who else is working under Doflamingo? Like, how big is this group that he's got going on? And Doflamingo is evidently like suspicious of overall what Caesar is doing here, but not unaware that Caesar's here, not unaware that he is experimenting. It just seems like he's kind of like, I sent you there maybe with a specific assignment and you're just doing your own thing. I'm not really sure. I have to assume it's something like that, well, I thought we had made a deal and you were going to, look into doing XYZ for me and you haven't done that. But I don't know, guys. Like, the I guess what I really think is that anybody who thinks that they can assign anything to fucking somebody like Caesar Clown, that's on you. The man is chaos incarnate. Like, I don't know what you would expect, but this is about how I'd think it would go. Um, the black stone is just meant to be a signal to the audience that he's using armament hockey. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Thank you, Seraphim. Yeah, I feel like I have seen that before and I got it wrong that time too. And for some reason, it's just not really sticking that that's the shortcut that we're using, the cartoon language. Um, so let's see. I'm trying to, oh yeah. So we go back to these dudes who are outside and they all think that the master is going to like let them in and are rushing towards the doors, and eventually when they get to them are trying to beat them down, shoot them down, etc., etc. And it obviously is not of any interest to Caesar Clown to save them. They're going to be guinea pigs that he is going to use to see how this like gas bomb thing works. But in the meantime, he gives them the assignment of gathering up the unconscious straw hats here and binding all of them plus Tashigi and Smoker up with those sea stone manacles. And that way we can't use our powers when we wake up, which those sea stone manacles are really a pain in the ass. So yeah, he turns to his guys at this point and is like, "Oh, I'm sure you've all noticed the strange substance that's been raining down from the sky. There's no cause for concern. I will ensure your safety." And, you know, he doesn't. So, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. Oh, right. Okay. So let's talk about Sanji retrieving the torso of the samurai. This is so weird. So what we've got going on is on the one side, all of these like smiley minis that are beginning to form on the shore. And then we have the poison that is in the water. And it is also purple. So it gives us a very good sort of line to recognize how close Sanji is to it. And he's swimming down in Nami's body. And eventually he does see the torso, but it is in the mouth of a shark. Which, you guys, this was so funny to me. Like, the shark just gnawing on him, and up at the shore, this poor samurai is just writhing in pain, and he can't really explain what's happening to him. Not because it's like beyond his means, he can speak, but I have to assume that he doesn't really know what's happening, right? And the way that he just like Sanji has to fight this shark to get it out, and all this was very funny to me. I actually liked this bit a lot. Um he's also sort of worried because he's in Nami's body, and he's like, if I do something and fuck it up, she is never going to forgive me. Although I will say later on, it's Zoro, I think, that says, you're never going to give it back, are you? And he says, absolutely not. So, y'all, I get it. It's all a little joke, but I am quite over it. I wouldn't mind if we would move on from this, actually. So, our friends on the shore are trying to deal with all of these smileys, cutting them. That's Brooke who does that. Of course, the gas comes out. We have the attempt to what is the other thing that they try to do with it? But it doesn't matter. None of the attempts they're making have any effect here. So once Sanji comes out and he has the torso, and our samurai is able to put himself back together again, he is so grateful and so like effusive in his praise of Sanji. And I was thinking that Sanji would say something like, about time that you say thank you. And he does, like, that's part of it as well. But the thing that he really focuses on is like, do you remember how the fuck you spoke to me before? Because now you're calling me sir and being all fucking polite. And you were really rude and shitty, actually, up until recently, like 30 seconds ago. And I really liked this, that the samurai thinks back on all the instances in which he was basically, oh, you guys are pirates and I won't accept help from you. I'd rather die. And just like all of these things that he has said. And he immediately like falls to his knees and apologizes repeatedly. And actually, I rather liked this. The samurai, like, he's all right. I am not totally enchanted by him, but I think for now he's pretty fun. And it turns out that like what he is able to do is cut fire, which is how he gets them past the smileys, which is what I'm going to continue calling these smaller versions of them. So yeah, that's useful. And I have to think that this is going to be like one of the main ways that we get past some of the obstacles that we are facing at this point. Because yeah, your boy has an ability that I don't feel like anybody has something close to. I was really interested in how surprised by it Zoro is, because I would have thought Zoro could do something similar. Just the fact that he's a swordsman, he can cut almost anything we've seen, and he uses haki, apparently. So I just sort of thought this would be... I didn't expect the samurai to be able to do anything that Zoro wasn't also able to do. And evidently I was wrong. And that's fine. I'm not mad about it. I'm just surprised. Um, so let's see. I'm trying to make sure that I don't miss anything here because there's so, like, the getting the torso back takes quite a long time. Oh, okay. So let's go over to Chopper. He's in the laboratory trying to figure out how exactly the poison was made. And bless him, he's so little. He has to go and get a stool to stand on to read this book. This is so cute. I love Chopper so much, you guys. I love him so much. He's just too precious. Um, and he's like, well, it should be in here somewhere. So he just takes the whole book. I really thought that he was going to just read it. And I was glad that he took the whole book because I'm sure there's a ton of other stuff in there that might come in useful at some point. Um, and he says, okay, now to find some sedatives. At this point, the Straw Hats have still not been brought inside, by the way. They're still out in the snow and being gathered up to be put in a cage inside. And this is when um Caesar Clown is like, "All right, well, I'm going to take a detour while you guys handle these dudes, and I am going to retrieve the children." This is awful. Y'all, it makes me so sad. I really didn't want to see them like agree to come back with him, even though I understand that that's the point. I kind of thought, I just thought that we would find a way around it. And we just, I mean, the kids start to like get so violent, and I don't know what to expect here because they're being told that they'll get candy if they kill the Straw Hats. And I want them to say, I can't possibly. Nobody does though. Not immediately. They're just like, all right, well, let's get on that. And they turn and start in on this immediately. I thought there would be some hesitation, but it feels very much like they're almost straight up hypnotized or something. Um, and I'm not suggesting that's really true. I'm just saying, like, for the show's purposes, they are under such control because of their craving for this drug that they're kind of out of their minds in a general sense and able to be told to do anything and think that's a decent idea. But that isn't like, while this isn't a fair representation of what going into withdrawals and DTs is really like, it's also not completely off base. Like, people will tell you in the throes of an addiction that they will do shit they never thought they would be capable of all the time. So the idea that you do kind of become a different person isn't out of the question, you know? And there was some of you guys know that I listened to Snapped, and that's a podcast made from a TV show about women who commit murders. And it's a specialized show because so often it is men. But it's all about women specifically. And a lot of the times, the stories can be very sordid about somebody having an affair or a person embezzling money, or even like custody battles will be a lot of them. But every very now and then, addiction will be part of the story. And one of the saddest ones that I ever heard was a woman who was in the midst of an addiction, and she was offered a second chance by her mother, and she murdered her mom to get access to money. And when she finally confessed, she admitted that after attacking her mother initially, and she kills her mother with like a hammer. It was not a gunshot sudden thing. It was a very grisly, visceral attack. And she said that when she first began to like just pound on her mother with a hammer, her mother tried to stop her by saying, I'm sorry, honey. I'm so sorry. Here's the money. Like apologizing to her for not giving it to her right away. I think it was money and like her access to her car, something like that. And she continues to beat her to death even after getting this. And it was just the sort of thing that I couldn't imagine. Not only it's your mother, but that she's pleading with you. Like, it's not like you shot her before you really thought about what you were doing and she was dead before you knew it. It was a decision that you made multiple times because every blow of that hammer is you choosing to do that. But also that she was under the influence of this horrific drug. And it was just one of the saddest things I had ever heard. And this woman clearly knew how fucked up it was. And there was just this like moment later on where her father was saying that I am trying to forgive her and I am trying to understand like the addiction aspect of this, but it is really hard. And I felt that was pretty gracious. You know, he's trying his best. I don't even think it was her biological father. I think he was her stepdad, and he had been trying to get his wife to cut her off entirely. And yeah, just you guys, these drugs, like the kinds of dismissive attitudes that you see from people, it's just folks who don't know. They can't. You know, I just don't feel that you can really know and still talk about it in this offhanded way, like people are simply continuing to choose poorly, like eating too much pizza. Like it's not the same thing. There's a chemical change that happens. Anyway, I talked about all this before. So we have this weird kind of departure where we briefly go to the island where all of these kids came from. This is so strange, y'all. I don't know what is going on here, but basically, it's these people whose kids have been missing for like 3 years, and they keep asking the officials in their town from the Navy to look for their children. And the scene sort of starts with this guy harassing the shop owner because he ate an apple. It was really good. And now he wants like 1,000 of them. And when the shopkeep says he doesn't have them, this dude is like unwilling to believe that, as if this man is holding out on him for no reason. And it was so odd because eventually, when it gets down to like, will you please keep looking for our kids? What we find out the official story is that they were just lost at sea. That's that's what we're going with. And rightfully, these parents are like, that doesn't make any sense. They were playing in the town when they disappeared. How did they get lost at sea? What do you even mean? And these dudes have no interest in making this like assertion make sense. I really expected a little bit more effort but it's like as soon as they say lost at sea, that's supposed to be the end of the sentence. And when these people are like, yeah, but it's like the reaction is such that I can't believe you would keep pressing the issue. As if these folks are complaining about their car keys being missing or something. This is their children, you maniacs. What are you talking about? It's just, I wasn't expecting this to be so oddly handled. And I have to assume that the reason for it is we are going to find out these men were in on the kidnapping, right? Like they had to have been part of this whole thing. There's no other way these guys can buy this little fairy tale. Like that's banana pants. But yeah, so Anyway, I never thought it was I thought it was going to wind up being some sort of like, this particular village hasn't got any children left, and they're trying to find outside help, and everybody has come up empty, but that there has been, a good faith effort made. And no, it is just simply, you we like pretended to look for about a day, and it's been 3 years, so now we think you should be getting over it, pretty much. And it's so funny to me, guys. There are times where real people in the real world will behave like this about, like, loss. There was something I read recently, and it was in a group that I'm in, and this girl was like talking about her boyfriend's reaction to something that she did, because she was feeling sad about her mother, and so she did something to like memorialize her. And he said essentially, well, your mother died like 3 years ago. You should be over it by now. I don't even think it was a full 3 years ago. I think I just said that because the show has the 3 years. But it was like, that's not how grief works, my guy. I have to assume either that dude hasn't ever lost anybody, or he has been taught he should be over it. And so he's sort of putting that on her, even though that is completely unfair and unreasonable. But this is the situation that we're in, is that the Navy has basically like uh wiped their hands, washed their hands of the whole situation, and refused to look into it any further. And I genuinely, when, like, if we are able to get the kids back to their parents, I hope that these dudes are in on it so that we can nail them to the wall for it, because I feel like that is going to be more satisfying than them simply thinking the kids were dead because we're lazy and didn't want to look, and then finding out that they were wrong. These don't seem like the kind of people who have any empathy. So realizing that they were wrong and that the kids were indeed still alive, I don't think that's going to make any impression on them whatsoever. I want them to be actively punished for being like part of a conspiracy. I will say that there is something about this that is sort of like, now that we're getting to a point where it's, the conspiracy goes all the way to the top. I'm like, Pizzagate, is that you? But it's not really the same thing. There's just a sort of flavor of it. Oh, Seraphim says these are the G5 Marines the group Smoker is with, who are infamous for being assholes even among the Marines. Oh, I didn't remember that. Okay, because I do see like the G5 on their what do you call them, uniforms. Sometimes it's not like just on their hats in weird spots, but I don't think that I knew everybody basically side-eyed them. That's funny. So okay, let's jump out of there. And I kind of already talked about this deal with the children overall, but like I said, they are really starting to lose it. Usopp has tried sending them back to sleep, and it's not working. And eventually, here comes Caesar and gestures with candy, outstretched hand, getting them all flipped out over it. But later on, we find out that he just tells them, like, I will take you back to the lab and then give you candy. So be good children and do that. And when they do, he's still out rambling around the countryside and doesn't actually give them any, which is interesting because, like, I guess you have to keep them in a state of desperation, right? The reason that they are so flipped out and willing to turn on the Straw Hats is the fact that they are in withdrawal. So it wouldn't make any sense to give, because, like, I'm trying to imagine if he had just given them the candy right here and they were sort of restored to themselves for a moment, would they realize what is going on? It's hard for me to tell exactly how smart these kids are meant to be, but I don't know whether or not they would like kind of shake themselves and be like, "Oh my God, I was about to do something terrible, but now that you gave me the candy, I realize, and you're the one at the, the root of all of this." Anything like that. I don't think so. I don't know. I'm curious. Um, but the fact that he is still keeping it from them later on, I was sort of grateful for, because I really still want the kids to be like removed from this place, of course. And I have to assume that if they are given this candy, we're just going to have to deal with the withdrawals again later. So keeping them in this state of withdrawal, eventually they will have to come out of it, right? Like, I don't know how long the course of this arc is going to be in terms of the passage of days in the show. But if Caesar forgets to give them the candy and they begin to sort of like recover from the withdrawals, it's possible they will come back to themselves anyway without his help, which would be really nice. That would be convenient. So I think I'm going to go ahead and hope for that. Um, so let's see. I'm trying to see oh, right. Of course. It's when the samurai is like, "Oh, I need to go and rescue my kid." And Zoro says, "All right, well, I'll definitely go with you." And he basically says to the others a little bit later, he's like, "So what are you guys doing?" And Sanji is like, "What are we doing? What do you mean? We're coming with you, of course." I mean, what else did you expect us to? We're just going to separate and then have to track you down later? No, we're not doing things that way. Um, Before that, though, the smiley monster is formed. It is so wild because it looks, one of them says it's a frog. Another person says, I think it's a lizard. And I kind of felt like it looked like a frog immediately as well. But it begins to shoot blobs toward them again. And it's like moves so let's see. Brooke says, I don't think the copies are unlimited. The one on that side is shrinking. And Sanji says, well, if in that case, I think this one should run out of mass soon, but what's the point? And then maybe it's trying to fling itself over here in pieces, which we know is indeed what is being attempted right now. We can't have it running wild on this side. People are going to get hurt. Well, there was a fair amount of it that was already on that side, and I guess these folks just don't know about it, that they haven't seen it. And once we have critical mass, it's going to be so huge. It'll be impossible to fight. Like, even having this samurai who can cut fire, I really don't know if that's enough to defeat something like this. That's like, I feel like I don't know, you guys. I'm trying to think of any way that one of our friends' powers could work for this. And I just can't think of any. The only one that I thought would have been Frankie, like I said, because of him maybe not needing oxygen the same way, but he passed out along with everybody. So clearly that's not going to work. I don't know. I mean, that's all I can think. Um, anyway, I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting distracted by trying to imagine, like, in the future, what could be going on. Um, oh, okay. So the going back to the centaurs, these dudes are still such dunces. I can't believe how easily duped they all are. They even are thinking like the Marines are kind of wondering if they can get back to their ship And I was like, didn't your ship get completely ruined anyway? I feel like it got blown up. But maybe the ship wasn't as damaged as it looked like. That's the thing with the way that this show works, is things can look as if they are completely fucked. As we see later, Brownbeard is still alive. And it's fine. Like it was just, oh, somebody was down for like a day, but didn't die. I feel like Brownbeard should have been the one exception to this, guys. Like, this, for me, it doesn't quite work that he was shot at point blank range and didn't die. And that we're supposed to think that the Cool Brothers are at all intimidating now. Apparently, the simplest of tasks cannot be accomplished by these two. So, and Brownbeard isn't even anybody that's like important to me in terms of the main cast, the Straw Hats themselves. I really would have thought, this is a guy we can stand to lose. Here's a character that can be killed because he's not one of our mains, just to let us know how dangerous these guys really are. He's going to be the sort of sacrificial lamb. And the fact that he is still alive, I know that I have talked about this before, and I have heard the arguments that Oda was feeling, like, we don't need to kill people for things to have stakes. But I really can't agree. I don't think you need to kill as many people as another series might. But I can't agree with the fact that, like, if this were a different type of story, then maybe that would be true. But this is a story based solely around fighting and violence. Like, explicitly, that is what we are here for, is people beating the shit out of each other, fighting and for dominance, trying to get stronger. And I just don't really see how you have that kind of story, but you make it so that nobody is ever really dead. And like I said, I know that we have talked about this before, and I understand the arguments that folks have made, or at least sharing what Oda's point of view is on this. But I just personally, there have been times where I've been willing to sort of hand wave it and be like, all right, well, I guess he's still alive. But I really gotta say, y'all, this one in particular was like, come on, not even him. You can't even let him die, especially because him dying as like the goober who fell for the okie doke from Caesar, it's particularly tragic, you know? So it was a more effective death than you would often be able to pull off with a character that we haven't known for very long. Most of the time, you kill off somebody who isn't integral to the plot, and you have a sort of like, well, all right, I guess now I see that this person was an example, and it didn't really hit me that hard, but I understand how this is being used narratively. But because he was duped, it's so much sadder and more pitiful, you know? And then finding out that he is still here, I just wanted to like throw something. And granted, he comes in and like kind of saves our friends, but it, ah, I feel like there had to have been a better way to do. I just don't think that having him be shot at point blank range is then have the Cool Brothers use some other means to kill people. You know, how do you explain that this guy is evidently fucking fine? He's like, there's nothing wrong with him. It doesn't seem like he has any injuries, nothing. So it just, I don't know, y'all. This one just really missed for me, but what can you do? Um, Sorry, we go back to Monet talking with Vergo, and she tells him, I assume, that he's planning some sort of huge experiment. It's not just big, but super dangerous. Um, and this is when she asks him, "Did you have a steak for breakfast today?" And he like takes it off his face and just eats it. He says, "I'd like to take a quick look at the experiment before I go. Everyone outside will die?" And Monet says, "Probably, but don't worry, you're safe in here." And Tashigi from the cage, because they're in the same room with everybody who has been captured. So all of these folks are hearing them blithely talk about the fact that every person outside of the walls is going to die. You guys, Tashigi starts yelling at him. "Hey, Vergo, those men out there, you know they're G5 soldiers, right? They're your soldiers, and you're just leaving them to die?" And Vergo just says, "Yeah, guess so." He just, I don't know why that got me so bad, guys, but it really fucking did. That was funny. And this is when he comes over and he's like, "Man, there's a lot of big names in this cell. That is quite a view when I look in there. There's a little walk down memory lane with Luffy and Robin talking about the things that you've gotten up to." Um, and of course, Smoker, who is, by the way, still in Tashigi's body, is like, "Do you guys not understand the gravity of the situation? Why are you just like chit-chatting over here?" So the two of them are, him and Tashigi, are just sort of disgusted by this whole thing, is the word that they use over and over again. I'm trying to find the spot here where it's, "Of all the people, the leader of the base was a double agent." That's right. "That may be characteristic of G5, but it's a disgrace for the Navy. How could you do this?" Wait, I'm lost. So he's a bad guy? Indeed. I'm surprised. It's this, like, is Smoker that we're talking, like, we're not talking about Smoker being, it's Vergo that they're talking about, right? Why are they surprised he's a bad guy when he just said it was fine that everybody out there would die? Like, it just feels like they're catching up really late. Maybe it's supposed to be that they couldn't hear him talking. But no, because Tashigi yells out, like, "Don't you care?" And he says no. So, and anyway, we get the little, like, Joker couldn't ask for a more reliable or convenient soldier to work for him. He has been working for him since the beginning. And again, this is a sort of weird moment where everybody, like, that knows Vergo is horrified by this, but because I don't know Vergo, all of these moments of revelation and how horrified Tashigi and Smoker are don't really land that much for me because I've only ever known him as a traitor. So anyway, he's like, "I'm really glad that we were able to uh, get you guys in custody, though, because I have been having to watch my back forever, and I'm really, really sick of it. So I'm extremely relieved that I won't be having to live like that anymore and keep my head on a swivel. Um, I've been in control of the situation for a while now. I'm sure they won't suspect me. And besides, on the off chance that they do find out about this, I already know what I'm going to do. I plan to, well, I assume you can figure that out." And then he just takes a drink of this liquor that he has poured himself. And I was like, I don't, am I supposed to be able to figure this out? I didn't. Is it that he will just kill everybody? That he will kill himself? That doesn't seem like his style. I don't know what it is that he is suggesting there. Maybe it's just the Marines who are supposed to know. Um, but yeah. Anyway, so he says, "I can't allow anybody to leave here knowing who Caesar Clown is, and I'm going to make sure that you guys don't leave here alive." I love how Robin has almost no reaction. This is so funny, you guys. The way she's just like, ugh. And this is when we find out that Joker is actually Doflamingo. Um, so I've kind of like the third episode is the one in which the whole thing with Brownbeard happens. I don't, I talked about a lot of that already. Uh, and the children and their flashbacks and everything. There's a moment I really like the fact that like the shorthand for Sanji having Nami like in his body is that we've just put very elaborate eyelashes on Sanji. But Nami, like at one point when the kids are starting to fly off the handle, Usopp is ready to shoot them. And Nami is like, you can't harm them. Like, I know that they are acting fucked up right now, but they are victims and it is not fair for us to go at them this way. And she is correct, but I understand also why he is reacting the way that he is. Um, so all right, let's see. This is okay. This is the point where he is using the gas power on them, and able to suck all of the oxygen. He first demonstrates this by making the fire go out from something that Sanji or that Usopp shoots, and it's like this cool firebird, and it just gutters out part way to him. And for a moment I was like, that's weird. It almost looks like flames look when they are deprived of oxygen. And I literally thought that and then never put it together that that was what he was doing until he spelled it out for me. Even though I know that he ate the gas fruit, I think that what I was sort of conflating this with was the fact that what do you call him? Magellan has specifically like a poison power. And so I was sort of thinking of it as Caesar Clown having a poison gas powers, not just gas in general. And the fact that he has the power over gas in general, when I step back and think about it, is really, really overpowered. Like, that's huge. It makes a lot of sense why he is a chemist as well. Uh, I mean, I'm assuming that he was a chemist, like, or had interest before he even ate the fruit, but perhaps he didn't. Perhaps he ate the fruit and then was like, oh, you know what? I guess it would pay to learn some chemistry and I would be able to manipulate things really easily using this power. Um, but anyway, okay, so this is when he tells the kids that they need to kill these straw hats, take them down, and then Brownbeard comes in and he's got like, I don't know if that's a mast or just a length of pipe. And Caesar Clown actually tries to tell Brownbeard that he was only joking, don't take it so seriously. I think he just doesn't know that Brownbeard literally heard a recording of him. And Brownbeard like tries to bash him with the pipe. But of course, because this man can turn into gas, that does nothing. I was sort of laughing because Brownbeard seems to be taken by surprise at the fact that this man can't be hit with a pipe. And I was just like, have you met him? You're supposed to be more familiar with him than anybody. But yeah, so he's like trying to follow him through the crowd of children, because like what Caesar starts to do is use them as a human shield a little bit, it felt to me, because he's going in and amongst them as if, well, try and hurt me and you're going to hurt these kids. He does eventually evacuate them though, so maybe that's not what he was doing. It felt like that to me though. I don't know. And Brownbeard says like, look, you tricked me, and that is one thing, but my crew isn't going to go through that. Give them back. I'm taking my men and leaving this place. And Caesar Clown is like, your men? They all swore oaths to me. They're not your men anymore, and you'd all be fucking dead if it weren't for me. All the fools that couldn't make it Like, that's why you're here, because you didn't have it in you to go any further than where you got. So I'm going to keep you around as guinea pigs and wait for you to die. I was sort of hopeful that Brownbeard would have a transponder snail on him and that he was like, communicating this to the whole island so that everybody could hear, but it seems not. And he goes once again to attack, and Caesar Clan uses his gastanet. I had forgotten that that's how he says it, is gastanet. And there is a massive explosion. And off to the side, our friends are just like, that does not look good. And he swoops down on Usopp and Nami. And he's clearly using the power to like pull the oxygen out from their breath. And it's a given that they have been captured at this point. I'm over time, so I'm just going to briefly touch on the fact that Chopper is trying to like get in to deal with his friends. Like uh this dude, I don't know what it is. He gets startled by Caesar Clown saying something. And I think it's because the balloon is coming, because Caesar Clown has one of those sort of, I don't know if you call this a dirigible. And that's what the kids are on. But the kids are all very frustrated because they thought once they got here they were going to be getting candy, and they aren't. Caesar is touching base with Monet and telling her, like, I got the children, was no problem. Did you prepare Smiley's food like I asked? And she's like, yep, got everything handled. I did exactly as you said. And she tells him, like, the Marines are still stuck right in front of the shutters, so just let me know when you want to do everything and we can handle it. And the transponder snails are on standby outside. So basically, what he's going to do, Caesar Clown, is play this like a huge commercial. He is going to have everybody watch the experiment that he's doing. And that way, if any of them are interested in purchasing this weapon, they will know where to find him, that they will know who to come to. And I find it very funny that like this is all meant to have been sort of under the table, but now he is doing something super, super public. And the fact that like Vergo is so worried about people finding out about who Joker is, I don't feel like you want to be drawing this much attention to Caesar Clown if you're concerned about keeping Joker's identity a secret. I feel like this is bad planning. But yeah, so that is how the episode ends, is with him being like, hey, everybody, watch me do my live test. This is something you can use for intimidation or disaster, whatever. But if this looks like something that you would be interested in, I would be more than happy to make a deal. And Kid, we go to a couple of the different like pirate captains. Kid is watching, and one of his guys is like, poison doesn't seem like your style. And he says, it's not, but I just kind of like watching carnage sometimes. What can I say? And that is how the episode ends. So kind of an odd ending, considering that it seems like they're saying he's not going to be buying this, that this isn't for him. But I guess it's just meant to underline the fact that he does not give a shit about human life. So makes sense. All right, I'm going to wrap this one up, but thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you again, Seraphim, for being in the chat. Appreciate you a lot. Hope that y'all are enjoying the coverage. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.